Today, I'm going to try the impossible and switch entirely to pen and paper as a programmer. Now, of course, coding is not possible without a computer, so some concessions will need to be made. But for the most part, everything I do normally for planning and scheduling, I'm going to do using pen and paper today. Now, is this a really good idea? Maybe not. Chances are my hand is going to cramp by the end of this, but the good news is, at the very least, we're going to get a really deep dive into pretty much every aspect of pen and paper. Now, in the past, I have talked about how I use pen and paper. For example, I tend to do a lot of bullet journaling, at least I did in the past when I had a lot more time. But nowadays, I tend to veer off of it because of the time-consuming nature of it. We're gonna let go of the more complex designs that I've showed in the past and try to go for a very, very efficient version today and try to just write down notes, make it more messy, and make it more freeform so that an entire page can be dedicated to a day, but it's more haphazard and allows for a little bit more freedom in how I actually get things done. All right, so step one is to just consolidate all my tasks in one place. Now, this notebook I usually use for just notes because it's a little bit better paper and it's just a really nice, easy to carry notebook. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this notebook, which I use for my bullet journal and just overall task management and calendars. I'm going to go ahead and open this up to a new blank page and just start kind of going crazy on it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take this single page for today and pretty much dedicate the top half to just the tasks that I need to get done, and then dedicate the bottom half to just note-taking, freeform note-taking, kind of like a brain dump area. I can pretty much just focus on grabbing this notebook now, and so I have a meeting in about 5 minutes, and what I'm going to do there is just grab this out and start taking notes on just one page, and I generally kind of try to format it where I have just the top as being the title in one line and then pretty much a date somewhere there, and use markdown notation for the most part. So big hashes for titles and things like that. And while it's a little bit weird, it does help quite a lot in just managing this stuff, and especially if you're scanning it in, it helps to keep things very, very clean on here, but then transfer it over to markdown really easily when you scan it in. All right, I'm just about ready for the meeting. I've got the meeting room up here and I've got my notebook ready to go. So I'm just going to label it at the top with a title. And I'm going to use the same format as the other pages where I have the title and then the date, and just kind of take it from there. All right, so I just got done with my meeting and I actually took quite a few notes, but I'm not sure I can show you any of these. But at the end of the day, these are really useful because I actually end up being a lot more focused on the meeting than usual because I actually wrote down everything people were saying, at least a miniature version. And there were some things that were actually important though, which I think is something that I need to distill down later. And that's actually kind of neat because what happens is when I write down things in my notebook, they kind of get lost. So at the end of the day, I usually scan in these notes into a digital note-taking app, and at that time I can also distill down what I actually need to know, bold those things, or even put them on my calendar and reminders as I see fit. Now for the fun part, we're going to be doing some coding, but with pen and paper involved. So for this, we're not going to be using the small notebooks. I mean, these are nice, but they're a little bit small, and there's just not enough space, so I've got something better. Now, when it comes to designing anything or doing anything that requires a lot of space, I always prefer this giant notebook. Now, over the last few months, I've been really just using this for anything that requires a big use of space. And frankly, that hasn't been the use case very many times over the months, but it's been all right. And one of my favorite things that my brother gave me was this beautiful Faber-Castell fountain pen to go with it. I generally love designing with fountain pens, and that's why I love this Muji one that I always use pretty much for any writing scenario, but this thing is really cool. It's very well weighted, and overall, it glides over the paper really nicely. Now, when it comes to coding something like this with pen and paper, really what I want to do is I want to be able to see and tell exactly you know, what I'm doing right now. And I'm trying to move forward into a more refined and a more structured style of coding, but for now, this is about as structured as we can get with this particular project because it's more of a passion project right now. Something that I'm doing a test on more so than an actual project. So I actually have designs of this notebook idea I was working on where I had all these different types of spreads and all these different notebook pages, but the idea kind of died out, but it's really cool to just flip through and you just see so much, especially because these pages are so enormous. Even splitting it by 4 doesn't really look that small. Now, what I'm realizing though is that I used to buy blue ink on this, but I actually bought what appears to be black. Oh, it's just really dark blue. Interesting. So this is royal blue, whereas the blue that he gave me originally with the pen is significantly lighter, but that's fine. I don't mind it at all. I think it's a really nice look. It gives it a very kind of premium royal blue look. So what I'm going to be using this for, since I'm really just at this point at the end of this project, I'm going to be using it to track down any bugs that I see as I keep working. So pretty much anytime I find something that's a little off, I'm going to note it down, write notes, and pretty much just kind of brain dump as I work. So here goes. Honestly, as I keep working on this, I feel like every single time I go through one of these, I just keep wanting to go on my computer, use a notes app or something, just take screenshots and kind of just waste time on all these other things. But with this, I feel like I immediately got through a workflow, a diagram of kind of what I wanted to see, and I was able to more quickly figure out exactly what I needed to do. Overall, I would say this is a success. I didn't get too much done, but I mean, for a proof of concept, I think pen and paper for coding is actually a lot better than any other tool you can use. So it's a little bit of a different methodology, and I think it really changes the game a little bit. Now we actually have a task where we have to write an actual document. Now the original document I started drafting is on here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually start writing on here, but I'm gonna effectively just draw a line where I stopped on the coding stuff and start doing a document. So what I'm doing differently is normally I would kind of start writing the inner pieces of each item more frequently. Rather, I'm starting with an outline and just focusing on the big top level items first, and then I'm gonna go inside and start adding notes. Something that's really nice about my iPad now is that after the video on minimalism, it's been an absolute delight to use because it's so clean, and the lack of distractions and the fact that the only apps that are really left here are just useful ones makes it such a dream to use now. And what I'm doing right now is I have 2 sides, and effectively I can do some research on one side and even do a separate type of research on another side, and I don't get distracted. I don't want to pull up any kind of social media because social media does not exist on this device, which is actually a really good thing in this case. Okay, I have a whole page of notes now, and so once again, I can't actually show you it, but this is pretty much a whole page of notes, so we got a lot. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my computer now and actually start consolidating these notes, because I'm going to pick from this only about 6 items, which means that realistically there actually isn't that many that are going to get picked. Now overall, I will say there was a lot of downsides in this one because of space constraints, but at the end of the day, I think that this is the way to go for anything. Having a piece of paper, especially something this big, because this is a large notebook, and having this much space to do whatever you want, especially if you had 2 pages instead of just 1, I think this would be absolutely amazing. When it comes to coding, not so much. It's useful, but it's not quite as useful. I think using a smaller page for coding would actually be okay. So here's the thing, right? Normally, I would do flowcharts and things like that using some computer tools. But my whole thing is I'm trying to do workflows now. And rather than doing it on a computer, I want to do it using pen and paper this time. Now the thing is, that is not an easy ask, because there's a lot of things that are just easier on a computer. But where pen and paper shine is you can do whatever you want. And this is something you'll see is very much so missing from standard apps like Visio or Lucidchart. It's just not very freeform. So that's what I'm gonna do. So what I decided to do is, rather than doing some kind of actual work on here, to finish this up, I'm just gonna do a quick little diagram of what Git flow normally looks like. Now, my strategy for this is a little bit more, it's gonna be a little bit more interactive than before, because this is not really work anymore. This is more like me sketching out something. And my strategy is kind of going top down vertically, and then allowing for other things to kind of connect together from the sides. So effectively we'll have like 3 columns going down. And this is again where it gets really interesting, because this is something you don't get from your standard flowcharts. So pretty much going through this, I think it's really interesting that as I was doing this, I kind of automatically thought of, well, how do you get to the feature branch? How do you know what to call it? So I said, create an issue first. And this is kind of how I'm noticing already that this is already a lot better than how I would normally be making these things. So if we keep going down the line, it's actually pretty simple, right? You just keep adding all the things. You do your git commit, which means this is where you actually, enter in your code into the database and saying that you're basically done with that part of the code. And you keep going. And so this is where we can create a little flowchart where we can go in a big circle around, and we say, are you done? No? Keep committing code. If you are, you go down. So at this point, I think I'm ready to say that I'm done with this, and wow, this was a way better experience than I had expected. This is something I did a while back, and what you'll see is that it's so freeform. There's so many things here on this one page, but that's so beautiful in a lot of ways. I can draw, I can have fun. When I get bored, I can just, color things in. It's so exciting. Okay, it's time to recap, because I think we need to talk about what the original goal was. The goal was to stop thinking so much, stop focusing so much on these external digital tools, and really put my mind into only using pen and paper for a little bit. The biggest thing that I noticed was that my external distractions outside of my work laptop, there was none of that. When you have pen and paper, there is no distraction. Now, where it really kind of worked in my favor was when I was doing both pen and paper and with an iPad on the side. Was it worth it? Yes. Would I do it again? Absolutely. And in fact, I've already kind of come up with a plan for how I'm going to start incorporating more of this into my schedule. Normally, I carry around a notebook, but I've recently traded it in more in favor of an iPad because it's just easier and it has a little bit more stuff in it. But I think I'm going to go back to carrying around at least a really thin notebook. Now, before you go away to buy any paper or anything like that, definitely hit that subscribe button if you like this video. And even if you didn't, stick around because I have some fun videos coming up. I love the comments that all of you leave in the area down below. So again, write your thoughts on this video. I want to hear more because when you guys comment on things like sound quality issues, visual artifacts, and things like that. For example, someone talked about the shadows. They're still there, but it's gotten a lot better. And it's only because of you guys in the comments that I'm able to kind of understand that. So thanks a lot, guys, and I'll see you next time.